There was a bit of a discussion on the Twitter platform recently over a tweet by noted Turkish man Hasan Piker. In this tweet, Hasan Piker argued that the US president could end the genocide in Gaza with one phone call. And a lot of really stupid people took issue with this. The tweets in question can be seen here in this post by friend of the show, the WillyMacShow. So the original tweet is this one by Hasan Piker. One phone call is all it would take to stop Israel's genocide. If Israel doesn't comply, shut off weapons transfers. If Israel looks to get weapons elsewhere, put up a sanctions package. And if that fails, invade Israel militarily. That is why all it takes is one phone call. And this was responded to in really the most generic Zionist way. Like, I'm making a video about this. Probably my next main channel video is going to be about this. It's going to be called something like How Zionists Argue or something like that. And it's going to talk about the main Zionist argumentative tactic, which is just repeating back what you said as if it's self-evidently wrong and then accusing you of anti-Semitism. Not always the second part, but usually. In this case, they were gracious enough not to accuse you of anti-Semitism. Very nice of them. They usually would. So the original response is this Twitter account saying, Hasan thinks you could solve the Israel problem with one phone call. There's no attempt to debunk this because, obviously most of Israel's armaments come from the US and they could not easily replace the American weapons manufacturers who give them these armaments. So if the US cut off their supply of arms, they would be unable to prosecute the war. They would be in real risk of being attacked by their neighbors and stuff because the US support, the US patronage is what allows them to do what they do. So a phone call like saying, hey, stop what you're doing in Gaza, withdraw immediately, or the arms transfers are gone. That would end the genocide right away. It's not a question of could this happen? It's a question of why doesn't it happen? They don't even try to argue against it. They just restate the statement as if it's self-evidently wrong. And I really like the WillyMacShow response here because WillyMacShow seems to have thought that Hasan was saying here that he could call Israel and end the genocide. I don't know how to take this aside from him saying that. All it takes for Hasan to end the war in the Middle East is one phone call. He genuinely seems to think that Hasan was talking about himself rather than the President of the United States of America. God, I love WillyMacShow. He's so funny. But look, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to assume this is just some bad wording on his part. And what he meant is that he thinks it's ridiculous to think that the US president could ever end a conflict in the Middle East or a war in the Middle East with one phone call. And I'm going to look into whether or not there's any precedent for this happening or not. Okay? So in 1982, during the Israeli assault on Lebanon, there was a phone call between President Ronald Reagan and Prime Minister of Israel, the noted terrorist Menachem Begin, whose name I surely mispronounced, but I mean, modern Hebrew is a constructed language anyway. They pronounce everything wrong, so I'm going to also pronounce things wrong. He called him and he told him, stop the bombing. What you're doing here is not okay. We don't support this. Stop. And within 20 minutes, the bombing stopped, okay? So that's one precedent for this happening. Ronald Reagan, by the way, Ronald Reagan was an extremely Trumpish president. He was just better on camera than Trump is because he was an actor and Trump isn't. Ronald Reagan was absurdly stupid, absurdly dumb, and even he did this. So clearly the US president does have this power. They have massive coercive power over Israel because Israel relies on their arms to be able to prosecute its war. It relies on their diplomatic support, and in many ways, their indirect or direct military support. Like the US, for example, famously helps shoot down missiles that are launched at Israel. It famously patrols the waters near Israel just to keep, make sure its presence is known because Israel wouldn't be able to do that as effectively by itself. You also see the US attacking Yemen essentially on behalf of Israel a number of times, and the US attacking Iran on behalf of Israel. So the US does a fucking ton for Israel. And Israel knows this, obviously. The Israeli leaders know this. And if this stuff was taken away from them, or if there was a credible threat that it could be taken away from them, Israel would have to fall in line. So the question here is not, would that work? As Hasan Piker said, it does work. It's proven to have worked in the past. And even like a basic thought experiment using the most basic Occam's razor would have you conclude that yes, Israel would indeed have to stop the genocide in Gaza if the US president called Netanyahu and told him in firm terms with a clear threat to escalate if he doesn't, that this needs to stop. The US is the world's premier empire. Israel is one of its proxy states. This is obvious. It's just so evident. It's so clear why they have not attempted to actually refute what's being said here. Because as I said, the Zionist argumentation is to repeat what you are saying as if it's self-evidently wrong and then call you anti-Semitic for saying it. So rather than attempt to refute what Hasan was saying here on the merits of his statement, on the merits of the evidence for it, they just say, all it would take is one phone call. How stupid! And I mean, yeah. In 2021 as well, the Biden administration pushed Israel very firmly towards a ceasefire, though not quite as firmly as Reagan did. So this is something for which there is precedent, and it's something for which, even if there wasn't precedent of it happening in the past, you can just look at the relationship between the US and Israel, see how much the US gives to Israel, how much Israel is reliant on the US, and easily conclude that yes, the US president could absolutely force them to stop what they're doing in Gaza. The question is not, can he? The question is, why doesn't he? But again, these people are just lobotomized morons, and they argue as Zionists do, which is just to repeat what you said back to you in a funny voice and call you anti-Semitic.